believe that you deserve the goal the goal or goals that you establish. You're going to have to do the work anyway, make the mistakes, do things right, and surprise yourself sometimes or whatever else. But from the beginning, I know like it's very popular to say, hey, like, begin with the end in mind. That's true. But energetically, from a mental and emotional space, is going to help you so much. You have to believe and you must believe that you deserve whatever goal you're seeking to accomplish. If you don't believe that you deserve it, what universal principle says is that you will self-sabotage beyond any level that you don't believe you deserve. Even if you don't have all the details and all the information and the perfect how to, believe that you deserve it. And that'll help you so much.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, William Deck. And William started his journey out in Houston, Texas, as a kid going through high school. After that, went into sales and did a sales training program. Moved to Milwaukee with his then girlfriend, now wife. Worked for a period of time in corporate, and then started his own business about 2 or 3 years ago with his wife, and she doing it, and moved over to doing it full time, and it's centered on mental fitness, and started to scale the business, which is what they're doing now. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, William.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm really excited about being here. This is really exciting to be able to have conversations about mental fitness and just to be able to discuss my journey, and hopefully this can help someone else today. So I'm happy to be here and look forward to it.
Awesome. We'll look forward to a great conversation. So maybe to dive in. So I gave a condensed version to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack a bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started down in Houston, Texas, going to high school.
Yeah. So I was actually born in Greenville, South Carolina, but we moved to Houston, Texas when I was about 6 years old. And so really all my formative years were there. And so from basically age 6 to 30, lived in Houston, had short stints in other places, but Houston was my home. And so going from Greenville, South Carolina, a very small town at the time, which is now like the business hub of the state, and it's totally changed. At that time, it was still kind of small townish, definitely small town thinking. And so moving to Houston at the age of 6, when no one, in Greenville was talking about college, at all, really, as far as it being like a priority or like, path to success, right? And then my first day of 3rd grade, maybe, well, I guess technically 4th grade, in Houston, I remember looking around and half the students had on University of Texas, Texas A&M, University of Houston T-shirts on like the first day of school. And I was like, that's different. And so really from there, that's kind of a small way of, I guess, life showing me at a very young age that things had changed. And growing up there, super diverse. It's been number 1, number 2 in diversity in the country as far as, the population for the past 30 years. That was also something that I didn't know would be a huge benefit, just growing up around everyone from all different backgrounds. And because Houston currently is like almost 8 million people, even back then, it was a whole lot of everyone. And so all the way through college, same experience. But there was a moment halfway through college that really changed things for me. And that's when my stepfather, during Thanksgiving break of my sophomore year of college, he had a stroke in the middle of the night. He did survive, but he was never the same mentally. And this is a man that went to Yale University. In the early 70s, he was one of a couple of dozen Black folks on the campus at the time. So he was a trailblazer, just a brilliant man. I mean, he had grown up in TV and radio. He used to be a disc jockey on campus for Yale University, and then he just kind of took that love and began to be on the administrative side through his career. And he had gotten up to owning or being a majority stake owner in 3 radio stations, across the country. And that was right before he got sick, and they were in the process of purchasing 2 more. And so, long story short, because a few components of paperwork that was a part of the key man insurance and other things amongst the ownership group, when he got ill, um, we basically end up losing everything. And so going from, basically standard middle class to like upper middle class and beyond, like right before I went to college, and just seeing him achieve his dreams and um, how it changed him, just as far as like feeling like he had accomplished what he really set out to do. And my mom was really excited, and just seeing them travel and things like that. I was an early college student, want to hang out with my friends, but seeing them travel and go places and do things, it was beautiful because they had earned it. And then to lose it all in that way was very, very tough. But it also, because as the oldest boy, I'm the oldest boy in the family. I'm one of five. I have two brothers and two sisters.
Hmm.
See how the other side, when he was ill and really honestly never the same before he passed about 4 years ago, and how I saw him defeated, but he wasn't taking care of himself, right? So the self care, the mental and emotional, and then finally physical, he was not taking care of himself. He just worked to work to work, traveled all around the country, didn't take breaks, except for during the summer because we were playing summer sports. All the kids were all athletes, and so I saw the great and the not so great of what success looked like, and it really impacted me. Put a lot of fear in me. Put a lot of fear
So
around money.
yeah, and maybe just to kind of come full circle now. So you're in the middle of college. This all occurs. Now did that throw a wrench in college? Were you able to finish out? Did you end up needing to go to work, or kind of walk us through kind of as this is all going where your journey went?
Yep, yep. So I was definitely about to hop into that because what that caused me to do, because, and here's the reason why the fear was built up. I had to take a year off of school. Um, I was already working, but I had to go work full time. I went from the 4 year plan to the 8 year plan to complete college. And from that point, it really always had, until my early 30s, I always had this voice in the back of my head saying everything that I was doing was not enough because I was behind. Because I started behind when I had to take a year off of school, and I just felt like I was always behind. So, all the way through finishing graduate school, any other accomplishment was always tempered with, but there's more to do. You can't take a break because you're still behind. And
Hmm.
it wasn't until about 33 that I got that voice out of my head and really began to do some inner work to realize what was going on within me. Along the way, from age 20 when that happened forward, I began to study and really learn about the science of the mind along the way, just because there were so many negative voices in my head that weren't there before, and I couldn't get them out of my head. So I was always learning to try to figure out what is going on with me. And because of that, I didn't realize I was developing skill sets and knowledge bases that will be helping people in the future. Understanding the subconscious mind, understanding, what that antagonistic voice is, the shadow self, all these different things. I studied everything because I wanted to know what was going on because I didn't have peace anymore. And I felt like my peace had been stolen away and it had been over a decade. So by the time I was 33, I finally slowed down and began to really do the inner work, not just the study, but
Now,
the inner work to
now,
say,
yeah. Now, before we dive to what you're doing currently or the present business, so you did, or you uh, took a while, finished the college, finished a degree. During that time, I believe you worked, did some corporate job or sales job. So walk us through a little bit about kind of what that path was or that part of the journey.
yeah. So from age 20 to 33, of course, a lot happened. So after I graduated college at about age 26, my first role out of college was with Allstate Insurance. And I actually got into a sales and leadership training program that was a 1 year program to train you to become a regional sales manager. So I went to that program, moved to Jacksonville, Florida from Houston, Texas. I actually met my wife there in the program, who's from Indianapolis, Indiana. That's how I met her. She was
Hmm.
about 3 months ahead of me in the program. And so learned so much from senior leaders from all around the country and how they did business and how they were successful. And everyone had a different formula, but the results were the same. And I also realized the attitude and mindset was very much the same as well. They just had an unwavering belief that they could do it. And so that was the role that I was in after that first year. For about another 3 years, I was able to get back to Houston, Texas after completing the program, getting back home. And I was covering a scratch territory that basically covered most of South Texas, which is about the size of the state of Wisconsin that I currently live in. And that means I started from scratch building relationships. So I really learned quickly how to be an excellent relationship builder while I was working with these mental and emotional things in my own head that everyone has. But I also had a big responsibility and a team under me. And I did pretty well with it. But at the same time, when things were going well, I felt good. And when things weren't going well, I didn't feel so great because my identity was tied to the work that I did.
So now, amidst all of that, you're doing the work, you're getting the corporate experience, so to speak, and I think you started dating your girlfriend, moved to Milwaukee, and transitioned to doing your own business. So walk us through a little bit of that course or that journey.
Yep. So um, in the third year of that role out in the field, my now wife and I we got engaged, proposed. And so we began to talk about where we're going to live. She was covering the Midwest states. She actually left the program as a regional trainer. So she was covering all the Midwest states. I was in Houston, and I was thinking about going a different path in my career. Before I got into in insurance, I had a big interest in healthcare. And so I said, you know what? I have a cousin in Milwaukee where we currently live who was already a VP of analytics in the healthcare system up here. She was my mentor from the healthcare side. So we started having conversations. Long story short, decided to begin to look for healthcare roles within the Midwest states. Milwaukee happened to be the best opportunity after doing interviews in Kansas City and then Lincoln, Nebraska, and then in Milwaukee. Knew nothing about most of those places because I'm a Southerner, but I had a strong call of destiny saying, "Hey, Milwaukee's the right place." It was one of the best offers, but something said Milwaukee was different. And it wasn't just because my cousin was there. A lot of people whom I grew up with, including my mentors and family, were really frustrated. Like, why would you leave Houston where I was actually about to accept an offer from my mentor? But something said Milwaukee was the right thing. So long story short, got married, moved down to Milwaukee, and we've been here for about 7 years. During that journey, we worked in the healthcare system for a big healthcare firm for about 3 years. Then I did workforce development for about 2 years, starting from 2018 to 2020, which really made clear that I had a specific skill set to help to transform lives. Because for 2 years, I was working with adult learners, I was running the program, and it was technology, business and leadership skills training. I was doing the business and leadership training, but I realized during the first week of our first cohort in 2018 that the individuals who were not traditional talent, most of them have college degrees, were really needing a mindset shift. They were going to need to see themselves in their future roles and begin to work backwards, like begin with the end in mind and begin not just to build the skills, but the attitude and the mindset to believe that they deserved what they were going into. Many had never had roles who were going to that offered benefits and retirement, 401ks. That was foreign to a lot of the individuals coming through this program. And so it wasn't just about saying, hey, think about that, but like think about when you go through the interview in 4 months, because it was a 4 month program. 4 months from now, you're going to be walking into an interview that's going to change your life, that could double, quadruple your annual income on the spot. You need to be able to see yourself deserving to walk through that door, to sit down and convince them, or not to convince them, but to articulate to them why you are the right person for the role. And you have to know that you're the right person for the role before you walk in there, or it's going to be someone else's. So, like talking through those things, and what I had to do is to begin to create basic workshops, which are some of the things we do now, to begin to break it up into bits, into bite-sized pieces, to really be able to help to create the vision, as opposed to saying, "Let me just give you all this information through a fire hose right now," because I realized that wasn't going to work. So I needed to break the information down. The interesting thing is that's the same thing that we're doing now, just at higher levels, working with corporate organizations, nonprofits, one-on-one coaching, and other work that we do. But it started with that. How can I make sure that I can transfer an idea in my head to someone else's head? They get it, the light comes on, and then they begin to take action after that. How can we make them self-responsible and inspired to do something beyond what they've seen? And that's what we're doing now.
So now let me just dive in or just expand that out a bit. So you figure out this is the direction you want, opportunity to help a lot of people, and to or start a business there. Did you start it? I can't. Or you'll have to fill it in because I believe you started it with your wife, girlfriend, or did it as a side hustle, did it full time. Kind of walk us through a little bit as you now have the idea as to kind of what the business you want to focus on. How did you get it up and going?
Yep. So after that workforce development role, I had one more role that started January of 2020. Pandemic started, and I was in that last role as a director of sales for another company. for about a year and a half. However, we started from the concept and idea phase with our current business actually in April of 2020 during that shutdown time where everyone for 2 weeks was supposed to only go to the grocery store and emergency places. That's actually we were sitting down at one night and we were just having conversation. We had talked about businesses before, but it was
Mm,
from the perspective of having a side hustle, right? But this time the energy was different. It was more about how can we create a business based on the what we do best, our skill sets, our passions, that will add the maximum value to the marketplace and become eventually a full-time business or thing that we do. And so from that, we began to write down some ideas, sat there for 3 hours after we put our daughter, who was less than a year old at the time, down. And from there, I began for the next 6 months to research, study, get some concepts and ideas down, talk to a ton of people in different places and spaces, lawyers, so on and so forth. And we went ahead and launched the business in December of 2020 after incorporating in October of 2020. So technically since October of 2020, we've been around, but from there, we basically launched. Going in 2021, it was all about figuring out, okay, do we have proof of concept? Are people willing to pay for it? Once we went from there and realized, oh, yes, the answer is yes, there's a lot of interest, but we need to make our messaging much more clear, not just to other people, but to ourselves. Really, for
mm,
the past 2.5 years, we've basically been doing that. And starting in January of this year, we really launched a 2.0 of the business by revamping and going from like doing mostly B2B and not much B2C, which is executive coaching, to balancing that out, doing more coaching. We launched our leadership Mindset Academy, which is now focuses on helping to develop emerging leaders within organizations, because a lot of times even the big ones don't have the tools to do so. And of course, other services and packages, which obviously we're not here to talk about every single one of those, but we say we need to look at the 2.0 based on what we've learned in the first 2 years. So 2023 has been all about that, and the marketplace has responded very well because we've been listening, as opposed to saying, here's what we think, now we know. And I think that's a complete different approach when you know based on what people are telling you, what your customers are telling you, or potentials. And that's totally caused our business to launch. We now have a team supporting us of about 7 or 8 people, doing several different things that's helping me to focus on more of CEO like thinking and activities. And that's so this is really my first year from a business perspective to think like a CEO and not just like a founder. Because if I'm in every single activity every day, I can't be a CEO and I can't be effective. I can't evangelize effectively and really help the business to scale, not just in strategy in mind, but actually also in implementation. And then seeing what other gaps do we need, what kind of funding do we need, and all the things that I know you know very well. But
mm.
it was concept. Now it's implementation and doing that. And I mean, just the compound interest effect of all the seeds that have been planted from relationships to business opportunities and now doing the right activities. Everything's filling in, and it's just a beautiful process. And we're still early in that 2.0, but that's what it's really all about. And that's what is inspiring me and just everyone that is working on this vision. Now the team is getting in place, and the stakes are larger than ever, but in a good way, right? This is what we set out to do, and we are doing it, and very, very thankful for that. So every single day, we focus on doing the thing more efficiently, and whatever that thing is, we know what our core is, but we're also flexible and open because we're beyond scaffolding, but we haven't built the full building and turned on the lights yet to make sure all the power works from the foundation up. But we're getting there. So every single day, what we're doing is really inspired work because I get to, and other team members get to do what they do best. And we're not all just, running around trying to fill in the gaps and put out fires. Now it's really just about how do we do this as best as we possibly can. And the interesting thing is when you do those things in quiet, the marketplace responds energetically. They don't have to know it. They can feel it. And then opportunities just begin to show up higher than you ever thought. So
Awesome. No, it sounds like a great journey, and you guys settled into a great place. We're able to help a lot of people on their journey as well. So it sounds like a fun, exciting business to be in. So, well, now as we reach kind of the present day of the journey, it's always a great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So we'll go ahead and jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
I would say the worst business decision that was ever made was not taking enough risk. being afraid of making mistakes as opposed to embracing mistakes, because I wanted to, in so many ways, protect the vision, or to, do whatever, do it at the right time. But really, there is no right time. And
Hmm.
so it hasn't hurt us per se, but because we live in a world and a universe of infinite possibilities, there are certain lessons that we could have learned faster simply by championing innovation, even when it was just my wife and I, and
Hmm.
saying this is a $5,000 investment in XYZ. We'll see if it's going to work because we have unction around it, as opposed to saying this might be a good idea, but we can't justify because of this. And no, like one thing that I heard from a great thinker and speaker, Jim Rohn, a long time ago, one of his speeches or motivational deals, he said, "Life is before us to give it a go. So why not give it a go? We can just as likely roll ankle getting out of bed as we would investing $500,000 into our dream.
Hmm.
So why not give it a go? Like either way, you're going to wake up the next day. Of course, you need to be strategic and all that, but at a certain point, you just got to give it a go. You have to jump with no parachute.
No, I
So
think that's definitely a good mistake to learn from, and a good one to move forward and incorporate into what you do. So,
yeah,
second question now that I like to ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
believe that you deserve the goal the goal or goals that you establish. You're going to have to do the work anyway, make the mistakes, do things right, and surprise yourself sometimes or whatever else. But from the beginning, I know like it's very popular to say, hey, like, begin with the end in mind. That's true. But energetically, from a mental and emotional space, is going to help you so much. You have to believe and you must believe that you deserve whatever goal you're seeking to accomplish. If you don't believe that you deserve it, what universal principle says is that you will self-sabotage beyond any level that you don't believe you deserve. Even if you don't have all the details and all the information and the perfect how to, believe that you deserve it. And that'll help you so much.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice and a great way or a great takeaway. So, well, now as we are wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I do a great job of responding to email. So my email is WDECK, so WD as in David, ECK at mindbusinessllc.com. So M as in Mary, IND, B as in boy, USINESS, LLC.com. Also, you can reach out to me on 3 different social medias. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so you can find me at William Deck on LinkedIn, or now they have the at symbol, so it's at William.B as in boy.deck. So you can find me there on LinkedIn. You can also find me at Mind Business LLC on Instagram, as well as on Facebook, as well as my first, middle, initial, and last name. So William.B.deck on all three. Instagram, Facebook, and most often LinkedIn. And yeah, we'd love to have a conversation about how we can work to address some employee engagement and employee retention challenges by putting in mental fitness programming to help people to help themselves and get out of their own way. That's the best way to retain folks, as opposed to trying to create this perfect entity or program that everyone wants to buy into. But if we can help people help themselves, that's the most effective way to allow them to stay, because at the end of that transformation, you were the organization that helped them to get there. So
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a great connection, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again, William, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So, just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, William, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
I appreciate it. Thank you.